We're live.
Yeah, the all-seeing eye is there. I'd like to make sure everybody there. Once that pops up, that all-seeing eye. All right,
Yep.
Good evening. Welcome everybody into the Dark Radio Network project from Studio 10 Broadcasting out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Tonight with me is Barb. Did I say Bob? Barb Horn Hartman and the never-ending, the great one, Russell Easterbrooks. He's going to be live coming through on mic because he's having transmission problems. The Jedi Master is having technical issues with the Star Trek system. But it doesn't mean we can't have a good time together tonight and talk and have a really good show. Some of the content and topic that I'd like to talk about is what's really going on everywhere, who's doing what. I'm hearing good things about some people's books. We might bring them up, some things about foods, things that I've been observing that I'm starting to test, things that I'm starting to do. I'm sure Barb, being on a property where she could share with us a lot of ongoings that's going on. Of course, Russell's always doing his artwork, drawing, making great posts and sharing content the best he can, the best ways he can through commenting and so forth, because he falls behind it a little bit with the technology that's going on in his area. He just had, Russell, I feel so bad. You have terrible something system down there syndrome. Maybe it's the orange man. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to stay non-political. You know what? We want to stay non-political as much as possible. It's Sunday evening with a bunch of great people, with all the Bigfoot groups and stuff. And you know what? A lot of people are looking forward to this. I even have some questions. So we'll get into all that. Barb, I want to say clear. Barb, why don't you say hello to everybody and start to lead us on, and then we'll bring Russell in.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Barb Hartman. Hello. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I have a active habituation system going here. Situation on our property. We have a clan of several, actually two, I believe, clans of Sasquatch that live around us in the woods and also visit our property quite frequently. So that's what else do you want me to say?
Well, for starters, that's excellent. We can get into some details maybe because, you know, you're having somewhat of experiences. So we can touch on those shortly. Russell, everybody knows who you are. The whole world knows Russell Easterbrooks. Some call you Sherlock.
I don't know about that.
Listen, some call you Sherlock. They know that's an innuendo because we know you know. But what do you know today? How's things going for you? Is there anything that's popping up in your mind the last couple of weeks? What have you been working on? I know you do a lot of different things, and you've been researching historical things and so forth. What's up with all that stuff?
Well, I've been doing some research and some articles for Bigfoot Quest magazine for Ray Harwood. So I've been working on a number of different articles for his magazine. So doing a lot of research for that. I've been watching listening to Barb's recording, which has been pretty interesting too, to try and hear those sounds that she's picking up and make some kind of a sense out of that. So that's been interesting to listen to too. So
okay, so you're kind of like the Barbara. I didn't know that, but I'm glad you. Here's the freaky thing about why when people get together, we find out what we're all doing. Sierra Sounds, okay? Yeah. And we know that that's famous, right? So what I did was I created a device to create a loop that every time an animal walks by my garden areas, that the Sierra signs go off. So the light goes on, and then the Sierra signs go off. So I got that going on my property. I'm starting to do testing. Check this out, guys. Really, this is what I've been up to that I haven't been sharing. Some of the things that I'm doing chronicles on for some of my tablet work and things to come. Studying the foods, like, you know, what I'm noticing of honey, maple tree syrup. They love it. Something's loving it because when they're tapped up high, something's going up there, and it's not with claws. Something's getting to the jugs. Okay, now that started to happen at the end of last year. So a lot of people might not know that they like honey syrup. Okay, and maple syrups. I use them both. No, I do. I use them both because I try to use bird feeders. And here's some of the other things that I've been doing also. I'm using symbols to see what they may know as intelligent. And so what I did was copy petroglyphs, and I made little wooden cutouts, and I'd leave them in places to see if they get noticed or to see if they get taken as a toy or a prop, something that they want to use. Some things have gone missing. Okay. I didn't even go far from the house. I just went right off the tree edges to where I was picking up a couple years ago a lot of the, I want to call them like orbs of light coming through the midnight hour trees, where if I took a picture, I was seeing all these little orbs of light. So I thought that would be a great area. Colored Easter eggs. I'm doing things on a different, and there is a color preferred, green.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know if it's a raccoon. I don't have cameras set up everywhere, but I'm working with colors for the main point. That's the purpose. I'm working with things like that they may touch, colored stones, things of that nature. So that's where I've been. That's where I've been at. That's what I set up over the winter. I can't wait to see some of the results. But again, playing the Sierra sounds down through the Allegheny Forest area, into the Appalachia, kind of like corner cuts. It could go down through there. It's not that it's real loud. It's so silent where I am and desolate, the sound travels. And I do want to see if that creates attractions, if I get footprints, if I can get hair samples, what's left on the corn. Now, getting to what we were talking about in the green room just a little bit, and I'll shut my mouth because I can really rock and roll on this stuff. What I've been finding out about the foods, and I want to know your thoughts on that, on when GMOs, leaving GMO modified food for them versus natural. I'm seeing squirrels, birds, and everything else so far going to all the natural elements of the foods. It's like they know instinctively there's something wrong. We may not notice it, but animals are sure telling us that they notice it.
Yep.
So, Russell, what are your thoughts about some of what I just, and I don't want to leave out garlic and onions. It seems that they love spring onions and they like whole garlic cloves. Something does.
Of course, they seem to like a lot of different things. But it's hard to know. I think different areas, they tend to like different types of things. So.
Okay, so like in migration circumstances, but what I brought up to you earlier going in when we were in the green room, and this isn't to criticize in any way. It's for us to try to get some obvious answers, of course. Some of the research that's going on up in Alaska, the triangle, that I brought up, the mass sightings, not mass, but maybe they are mass. I don't know. There's a lot of people coming forth and talking about, the Prince of Wales Island now being called Bigfoot Island. And then you have the Kowak Mountain area where we're now seeing and being shared pictures where more trees by some hominoid, something is picking them up and driving them in. You can't get heavy equipment to these areas. So let's take all these caterpillars and claw trucks, all these things. We got to take that. Something's doing it though. Anyway,
what would motivate what would motivate somebody to take all that equipment out into an area? It's very remote, right? Area. It's kind of dangerous to take. You really have to watch with the peaks and the valleys and the cliffs. Why would you take heavy equipment just to pull it out, turn a tree upside down and then claim Bigfoot? I feel like you would know, you would be able to see that the ground has been disturbed. This isn't what they're finding, right? They're not finding that. Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Russell, please.
Yeah. And it's pretty amazing to think that these creatures can actually drive one of those tree stumps into the ground. I think that you would probably have to assume that they would do some digging with their hands first, and digging a hole to get these things into the ground. Because just to be able to drive it into the ground makes no sense. I don't see how that would even be possible, as big and as strong as they are. But should they, dig a hole to begin with to get it into the ground, that makes a lot more sense.
Okay, and I respect that. So let's look at the ant factor. An ant can lift how much more its own weight?
Absolutely, yep.
So,
right.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm agreeing with you. They may have to do something, but they may be, in fact, much stronger than we realize also. We just don't know. We don't have anything on video. We don't have any pictures. And again, when it comes to pictures, how do we even debate pictures anymore? Because of so much mystery behind everything that we do have that we look at. It's not like Bigfoot walks up to anybody and puts his hand down. You know what I mean? Well, he did it for Ernie. Anything might be possible. Anything might be possible for the right person. Maybe none of us so far have been that right model of a person that they pick up on our aura and so forth. I mean, I just don't know. They may be able to actually understand by looking at us, judging us somehow, how to deal with us. Maybe that's why they stand still in the shadows. Because even if you go into, and I go deep into histories, I've looked everywhere. I've heard of writings. I've seen writings mentioned of UFOs out on the water. What the hell was his name? Had him in his memoirs. And Leif Erikson making mention of feral men or Bigfoot something. So we have all these different scenarios. But when you go back, we're digging up everything but one of them. Unless it is gigantic Piccathus.
Yeah.
So if we go into Bigfoot Expedition Bigfoot, or the girl and the guys and they're out there, they're going everywhere. What do you guys think about that information? They find some hair. It's related to Chip. It's related to different types of the
eDNA that they keep finding. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. That was chimp related. I want to say something to speak to the upside down tree thing. Is if they can pull it out, it's going to create a big hole. They can flip it around and shove it back down in. I don't know. That's there's two trees very close to me where I'm at right now. One's about maybe 100 yards, and then the other one's probably 500 yards. Upside down trees like that. Now they've been there since we bought this property in 2017. So how how they got there, whatever, I don't know. And I've not asked anybody. Nobody seems to know.
Right.
So
it makes sense that there was some kind of a hole there to begin with, where they, like you're speaking about, where they pull it up to be able to turn it over and put it back in the same place. I mean, they're certainly strong enough and powerful enough to do it. I mean, given their body weight or the leverage that they have with their long arms.
But why would they do that?
But still, to be able to drive it in the ground, if you hit a rock or something, they can't, they can't drive it through a rock. So I mean, they would have to have a hole of some kind to begin with, I would think.
Right. Yeah.
So then that means they may even understand toes versus hands. Go ahead, Barb.
Oh no, that's just what I was going to say. That could be something I've, and you guys might be aware of this, but something that I've discovered recently is that there's so many reports of I think they push big trees over that have these huge root balls, and ideally if they can push several over and make a little area that this is loose dirt, they can dig way down into the ground. A friend of mine here locally had gone out into the area that he hikes in and researches in, and he found these two massive trees that were kind of just like folded over like praying hands, and then so there's consequently are these two huge root balls, and he was like really upset about it. And I'm like, but what if they did that on purpose? What if there's something in the tree that is some sort of a disease? Because there are a lot of tree diseases, unfortunately, in the Pacific Northwest, because I feel like
exactly.
Well,
Things going on around us.
If they know that, they're going to try to, and then utilize these trees, the huge, oh my gosh, I don't know, 20 foot, I don't know, massive root balls as shelter. And that's, did they talk about that on Expedition Bigfoot? I can't remember. I know it was on another show that I had seen, but I know that, like I said, I have local researchers that have talked about that. That's something I haven't seen yet, but hey, you never know.
Right.
Also about the green, I think, Russell, you had seen in some of my either photos or videos that they had left. I didn't realize that was a thing. They had left a green rock in my area that I call it the gifting stump, but I don't really do a lot of gifting. It's more like to see what, like you're saying, what do they like, what don't they like, more not to feed ongoing. These are just for gifts, and they do not like non-GMO organic. They don't like non-organic apples, non-GMO apples. So you have the apples that are I don't know, like the
pesticide free.
Yeah, but like the pure, I don't think they like the hybrid apples that are created, that are, because I have put several back, and they're organic, right? But they won't.
Yeah, I think they call them organic because they're treated with stabilizers so they don't rot.
Could be because
like it's called an item called Stay Fresh. We used to use it in the restaurant business in lettuce. You would ice the lettuce, put it in water, add a tablespoon that would come from Sexton, Bear Hoist, all these big conglomerate corporate companies who were food purveyors for restaurants, and it was called Stay Fresh. You put 1 spoon in there, and I swear to God, it was like reviving dead.
Yeah. Perfect example. There is it's a Washington State apple, but this is something again that was created, a variety that's been created, and it's cosmic. It's called Cosmic Crisp. And I don't know, it's a decent tasting apple. I just don't think it's that great. And what I don't like is what you're saying. You can cut this apple and it will stay, it never browns. It might dry up, but it never browns. And I thought, I don't want to eat an apple like that. That's weird. And it's strange. I got some apples recently that were called like Washington State Jazz apples. You cut them and they're within 10 minutes starting to brown. Well, I feel like that's what an apple should be doing, right? And they were so good. So I'm going to get some more of those. And it's been raining here incessantly. Once it stops raining so much, I'm going to take those to the gifting area and see if they like those or not. We'll see what happens.
I'm sure that a lot of the apples that you can get, they know that if it's been any chemicals put on them or anything's been messed with,
right.
The people that I know that do the apples always use wild apples. Mm-hmm. They pick them up off the ground.
Yeah.
Bring them to their site.
Yeah.
The other thing is,
I used to do that. What Russell just said. Excuse me. I used to do exactly what Russell's saying, but my trees have all come to. But I also have older trees. Mm-hmm. I haven't noticed much of a difference between either or saying they're robbing me blind. The only thing that I lost was a considerable amount. Was nearly 1,000 ears of corn, and it happened in 2 days. Entirely wiped out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Entirely wiped out. I kid you not. I tasted one. I said to twig, I said, you know what? 2 more days is sun. It needs the sun. It's going to pull the sweetness into the corn, and we're going to be rock stars. We're going to be freezing and making all this delicious. Went back, it was all gone. All gone. And it was down over the Bear where I take that picture up on the hill that shows the mountain tree areas. I posted them in earlier pictures. I don't know if any of you guys caught them. So you can't see it from the road. Mm-hmm. And only one neighbor would have known about it. And he was pretty near 90 at the time, 89, 88. I don't know, very old. I had to rescue him on his big tractor a couple times because he had it tipping in the air, locked in place. Yeah, I mean, so was it someone in his family? It's possible, but no one goes back on my property to know it even existed. And I didn't put it there for any particular reason. I just thought, hey, cool, this looks like a good spot I'll plant. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I have 2 trees on our property that are about, I don't know how old they are. I don't think that we're only the second owners of this property, and I don't think that she had planted them. I think there's a lot of trees that I don't know who planted them on the little peninsula that I live on. I don't know if they're naturally, I don't know. But there are so many of these almost like wild apple trees around that I'm also thinking it's like, if I put it out, the Sasquatch are like, really, apples? Like, thanks. Like, we can't get apples in your backyard. So they don't seem to mess with the apples that much. But again, it could be that there's such a plethora of them. But what they do like is I have an old grapevine that we've trained. We built an arbor fort and trained it to go. And what I found is that same thing. If I waited last year, I waited too long, and they overnight, or maybe 2 nights, the grapes are gone, completely gone off of this. And it's okay. Yes, the deer could potentially be the ones, but I feel like, okay, if a deer is going to eat a bunch of grapes, you're going to find, leaves on the ground, torn, right? If birds, same thing. It's this was like bunches of grapes that were just pulled right off or twisted right off, or they were like plucked off. Now, I just feel like that's not, in mass overnight, 2 nights, that's going to, birds or deer or wildlife is going to do that. And we have them sitting up really high. So, it's not just anything could come and get them. How we have it trained up, the grapevines. So that's interesting.
So are they on the trellis?
Yes. Like, it's like a big circular thing that kind of comes together. Yeah. Gotcha. And I have them trained. We have them up there, weaved in. So they sit pretty high, maybe about not quite 6 feet, maybe 5.5 feet. Some definitely are. So I have to take the little step stool down and get them. But yeah, I just think that's interesting because, again, I don't know what animal's going to come and systematically, pluck it off or take a bunch of grapes and twist it and pull, take it all off, snip it off.
And to know exactly when they're ready to be picked. I mean, that's
yeah,
that's subjective for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a squatch around, he could be watching that you were out there looking at the grapes and sizing them up that they're almost ready to pick, and then they come in and investigate because they're curious, and then they help themselves.
Yeah, and that's like, it's really hidden where they are because of all the grapevines and leaves. It's hidden. Something could go through there. And I think that they do. I think that they do kind of travel through here, through the backyards, because our backyard faces the Puget Sound, and it kind of goes down at a pretty steep level. So, they're down there. I think that they actually sit down there too at night. I've heard some, sounds and movement, and obviously on their way down to the water, because they're always down in the water doing, fishing or getting crabs, clams, oysters. So.
Yeah. The water supplies a lot of essentials that I would think that they need. One of the other things I wanted to bring up to you, I want to show you guys something. So I know somebody does wood burning, and I'm going to get one of these wood burners. But one of the things we're doing is a way to say hello to Bigfoot, to let him know he's welcome, as well as Dogman. I'm not trying to create the rake. I don't want to get the rake involved. I mean, there's so many things we could speculate on what's really walking on this earth. We pick up so many shadow figures and visions. It's hard to say what's really part of within our own dimension. So check this out. Somebody made this for me, gave me an incredible idea. It's kind of like making a Christmas ornament. So, but I'm going to have my Bigfoot waving hello to the Bigfoot that come in and the Dogman.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So they will know that it's like a welcome. or a way to say to them, because nobody's doing the stuff that I do. I do things from out of the box of a different version of who everybody else is.
Yeah.
And I don't need to show footprints because there's enough out there. It doesn't matter. But what matters to me is, can somebody make this connection? Because we hear that they're on people's properties, but you can never go there. We can't tell you where they're at. We're not going to let it, I understand that's their space. But again, I think that in order to take the next step into the phase of this, would you not think that we need to all be working together a little bit better rather than independently? Because nothing's happening on what they're doing.
Well,
and
yeah, but I get
together,
that.
More man.
I get that, though. I would never want anyone. I would never want anyone here to investigate the property. The property that they live on, first of all, is like a private land trust, and I have permission to be on there, to be hiking, and it borders our property. I don't want to lose privilege of that by saying, hey, come on, even people have said, oh, we can do it, and we won't be, we'll do it like undercover. They'll never figure it out. Well, no, I can't, because also my thing is, whether people choose to believe my evidence or not, that's absolutely fine. But I'm not going to do it at their peril. I would hate to see a bunch of people in here trying to get evidence of them. I'm trying to do that myself, and I've been pretty successful. Now, again, but that's if people choose to believe it or not. Yeah, because the other thing is, all right, what are we going to do? First of all, I think the government already knows that they exist. What are we going to do? All right, yay, Bigfoot exists. This is it. Here's a specimen. So then what? Then do we put them in zoos? No. Do we round them up and put them on reservations like we've done with the indigenous people? What do we do with them? That really concerns me. What do we do? Because I think they're part human. Also,
I think they would need to be protected.
Yes.
Once the government comes forth or whatever, and explains how real they are, then they need to set up protection. Now, of course, that's going to take a real hit on the state parks and federal parks, because people aren't going to want to go camping once they realize these things are real. And, so those areas would probably be better off, instead of camping areas, now be set aside to protect the Sasquatch.
Yes.
Russell, do you think in a way that that's already taking place without them exactly telling us it, by saying government restricted area signs? And they're everywhere too. So are they already doing it? Look what they did in Alaska. Not to go back there, but the criteria where after your last, the last representative living person of the family, when it hits that point, when he passes, that land's no longer usable and goes back to the government. So we're seeing all these things being shut down. I'm not saying it's for the purpose of the hairy man, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, dogman, or one of these other cryptid creatures, because I do think, perhaps they know that we are dealing with things out there that they don't want us to know about. When I interviewed Joe Barger about dogman and how the government came to him, said that dogman was an adversary. When he was in the military, what a lot of people don't know, and deep in our conversations, was he came back one evening from something that he was assigned to. And when he came back, he said everything looked kind of odd and weird. And I don't remember it all, so I don't want to misrepresentate his words. I want to keep his words as correct as I can. He walked into a tent, and he said he observed one laying right on the table.
Wow.
That they were all around, all of his upper branch commanders and so forth. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of that, but that is also part of, of an experience that he had. So again, knowing that we are marking and not marking lands, but that the government does, secretive things. How do you not know every part of the earth? I mean, come on, we got Google Map, we got all these sophisticated, we got DARPA, who runs even Facebook, who the ones that put us in jail, made the rules, since 2024, but 2016 to also do a different type of direction of narrative where we saw only certain things that suited us by what we were doing and posting.
Right.
but they're doing these things. So how do you guys feel on that? Do you think they're already enforcing something here?
I'm not sure about that, but you know, they certainly know a lot. They have a specimen. I'm sure of that. I mean, if you read Mary Green's book, Mary Green speaks about the Sasquatch that she had befriended. His name was Fox, and on his deathbed, they actually were able to come and see him. A small group of people, but they were able to come and actually see that Sasquatch. These were some people that had never seen one before, and there were others in the area as well when they came to visit Fox on his deathbed. So, I mean, you know, that's just a for instance where, you know, a researcher has actually seen one of these. I mean, lying on the ground.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with that. Barb, go ahead.
In the area, so I'm in the Pacific Northwest. I'm in Washington State, and there's a couple of big national forests up here. On the Olympic Peninsula is one. That's the Olympic National Park and then National Forest, and then also Gifford Pinchot National Park and National Forest. And there's always areas that are closed off. And they'll just put the big, the big gates down. And I'm talking year round, not because some of them are inaccessible due to in the winter, because there can be so much snow in those areas that, you know, the roads aren't accessible. But just for whatever reason, let me see, it was 2019. My family and I we were going to do what's called disbursement camping in Gifford Pinchot National Forest. And the area that we were going to go into was closed. And it's like out of the blue, because my son had checked and there was nothing came up. And unfortunately, so then we had to take like an hour and a half trek around because, you know, to get to another road that we could get in, a service road to get in. So I thought that's kind of odd, but then talking to people, oh yeah, that's what happens all of the time. So I don't know. I think that's a thing. Do they know that there's an area that has that there's activity, a hot spot? I certainly heard so much just the one night that I spent in Gifford Pinchot National Forest. That was the first time I ever heard, for sure. You know, I know now Sasquatch, man, and that was something. So, and I know, you know, other researchers say how very much activity there is there, you know, and actually they get, a lot of people get like scared, you know, forced out almost. We didn't have that, but yeah, it was really loud. It was loud. Oh, the one night we stayed there. Wow.
So you were hearing some type of language going on?
Not language. It was screaming. It was howls, that kind of thing, like maybe the Ohio, you know, screams. And it was about, I'd say 6 to 8 of them. They were probably about, I don't know, maybe a mile away. I'm not quite sure. So, but it was just, and they were coming from both directions. So as I'm laying in the tent, I could, you know, from my right and my left, and like they were talking or yelling and screaming back and forth to each other. I didn't know what it was. I thought at first, I was like, wow, is this a bunch of it sound like deranged humans? But then there was also this element of like a different element that didn't sound human in with it. And it went on. I was absolutely terrified. I mean, I was the only one that heard it. My husband was still asleep. I was so scared. I didn't even want to wake him up. I did not have my cell phone. My cell phone was in the car because we had no service there. So, you know, we didn't even have our cell phones. It had been pouring rain when we set up camp the night before. I just couldn't believe it. And if I did have my cell phone, wow, would I have been able to get some great audio? It was just unbelievable. But that's not uncommon in that area. It really isn't. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Russell, why don't you jump in? If not, I'll take over for a couple minutes, share some thoughts. What do you, are you up for it, Russ?
Yep.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead. Full steam.
Yeah, and I've been listening to some of Barb's recordings and trying to decipher what we're actually hearing. And I want to say, I think we need to recognize these as sounds and not words necessarily. I mean, words are things that we understand and we have created, and what their language is something different. It's not about words, so to speak. It's about sounds, and they may be able to. We know they can mimic sound. The Native Americans speak of that, of them making bird sounds. There's people that have heard them mimic the sound of their dog's name or something like that. And if they can mimic sounds, then sounds may be the basis of what their language is based on. Now, I mean, that sounds pretty elementary because you would expect that anyway, but I'm thinking that the sounds are different. It may have something like, we know of words that represent a sound, like the word buzz is representing a sound, or whistle, and so forth. And if their language could be something connected with those sounds, then we may be able to kind of figure something out with this. Now, I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff, but I've looked into it, and I did a pretty nice article that's going to be showing up in Bigfoot Quest magazine on this theory that I have, and I've kind of explained it. It's a lot easier to read than to listen to me babble on about it, but anyway, I think it's a theory, and it may be some interesting reading for some people to get an idea of something that's a little different. And if we just look at some of these things a little differently, then we might be able to come up with some answers.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. And we're going to do a little bit more sharing on that article that you wrote as we go through too, because I knew you were doing something. I thought you. Anyway, we're gonna let people know more about where they can find that. All right, so I'm gonna get into a couple things here now. This is again all about non-judgment, a friendly debate, discussion type of thing. But before we do that too, we've had some good comments in here and so forth. Some of them are lengthy, but we're gonna give a quick hello. Mary Fabian, everybody knows Pennsylvania Bigfoot Queen. Harley Owens, Harley Owens is in. Fantastic picture. Chuck Cook, hey, he's one of my American Rebellion friends. Jerry Michael's also in from American Rebellions. A little bit different, but they all have a little bit of an interest to this too. Jack Warren's been all over the board. Thank you, Jack. Really, he's like a brother from a different mother that I wish I had as a brother. River Rose was in and out. Deborah Myers has been in and out. So we've had a lot of people jumping in and out, listening to us. So here, I'm going to take you off into the Wizard of Oz. Okay. Why? Because I do agree with something that Russell said. When he mentions the bird whistles, I've noticed at night a couple times, more so than I've ever noticed with any type of tree knocking at all, just what I've experienced. Sometimes you hear a bird at the strangest hour of night, but not always does that bird crash into things like trees to make them fall over. Right. So I just wanted to say, sometimes I think there's an obvious answer there to what Russell said, and it does coincide and matches up. But bigger than that, all right, in the national parks, it's a testing zone. Just like through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, Agent Orange, LSD, AIDS, epidemics. Now, look, I'm not saying this for all the wrong reasons. I'm doing this for the right reasons here because of what we're talking about and all the fundamental information that we have about it all. And what that means to me is there is something that they have out there that is now being discovered as AHI syndromes, and I call it the AHI weapon. This is something that they hide now. And you think about this on what you've seen posted on the internet, where they are putting 5G things into trees. They are hiding things in palm trees, any other kind of tree that you can think of. And they are actually sending frequencies out. They're doing it in national parks because they have control over national parks. They're doing government areas because they have control in governmental areas. We're just finding this out. And it goes into, pharma, it goes into all this stuff. It's that whole thing, Jay, RFK, and so more and so forth and so on, of what we've watched over the years, but now how they're doing it, live testings, while we don't even know we're being tested on national parks. What is this capable of? And this is, I guarantee you, 100% accurate information. Low-intensity weapon frequencies that they shoot into us that can implant thoughts that they choose us to have, experiences that they choose us to have. So I'm just laying this out for people to start researching into this, because these things have been in place. Not only that, you have scientific programs that are doing things, setting off noises now in the forests. And I'm not saying that we're hearing a speaker knock. I'm not saying anything like that. They're doing things purposefully for some reason. And they are all starting to make a little bit more sense as we go into the future of being awoke to new knowledge and more things. But if they can do it right in front of us on our own street by making, putting in some type of artificial simulation of plants and so forth, they can do anything and hide it in the wildlife too for their own purposes. But then you have scientific researchers that are out there doing it, being paid money, some that are good, not the woke bad stuff. I'm talking about things that are fundamentally good for purposes of research, plant, and reseeding the earth with good seed, because of all the contaminations that happen and all the things that's taking out the trees due to all the other. So they are out there working. They're doing things. I can't answer as to how deep they are, but when I came across this and they started saying these things, they can basically use frequencies anywhere in the world that they want, anywhere in the woodlands that they want. And we don't even know, just because we plan with our family a beautiful weekend to go out, and somehow we all are hallucinating somehow, or something's being interjected to us through frequency weaponries. So I just want people to keep in mind that we do know now, and it's called AHI syndrome. People do suffer from it.
What does that stand for? What is that an acronym for?
That's the whole thing. They're not really saying. I'm waiting for Congress to make that announcement.
AHI. I want to look into that.
Yeah, AHI. And again, they may be adding more to it. As of now, they haven't. So I call it the AHI weapon. But there's also, again, like I said, there's scientific research that's been going on for a long time where they're projecting sounds, plant simulations, like, when they connect up electric probes to mushrooms and they hear frequencies, and it almost sound like musical little things.
Yes.
So there's a lot of things going on out there that people have no clue that they're walking by in the woods. And what is that?
What is sound too? That they've worked with that, and they found out that some of the lower frequencies can be manipulated and be used as some kind of a deterrent. But certainly, that would be something that would be part of that when we were talking about frequency. That type of sound, especially the lower, anything below the 20 hertz that we can hear,
right?
That we can feel, and then some of it, when you get down in the really low numbers, it becomes more dangerous. So.
Yeah, my thing is this: when I sit back, when we know everything that we do know in ways, but so much that we don't know and probably never will know, when a weapon is weaponized against people, peaceable people who just want to enjoy the outdoor life, is another product testing with infrasound and the things that they do. They are actually, somehow, and they're getting into our minds through this technology. So yeah, Barb, please look into that as much as you can. I'm going to continue too, and maybe we can do some more talking on that. But I thought it was worthwhile bringing up because it lies within that element of what if.
I asked ChatGPT because that, I like to, it's a tool that I know that we all, we're all worried, and we should be. But I'm doing something with my chat GPT. I'm trying to train it. If it gives me any sort of answers that I think are propaganda, I literally tell it, this is propaganda. Now I want you to find the source of something that is I just want the facts. And they'll say, and it will say, oh, all right, I'm going to do like deductive reasoning. And then it reads, and I'm like, well, okay. So anyway, I ask it, and it said AHI stands for apnea hypopnea index. It is a measure used in sleep studies. So now I don't think that's true. So I'm going to have a little talk with GPT and see what it says after the show and see if I can find more. Because I bet I can get it out of it. Just have to do something.
There's a purpose to what they implanted the whole planet with these devices for. We don't want to go off base here. I tried to make a promise to everybody who did call, hey, Mike, you're going to stay on track because I go off. But anyway, if you're just joining us, this is the Dark Radio Network Project. Bob, I'm going to nickname you that. Barb Hartman is with me with Russell Easterbrooks, and I don't know why that happens to me. It must be something. Maybe I got zapped one too many times. Anyway, but we're talking about foods, GMOs, things, colors, and you brought up the green rock, and I told you the color green was significant. I did. I didn't
know that. Russell knew that. He said, "Oh, look at that green rock. Did they leave that for you?" And I said, "Wow." I went back out, and that was not something that. There's no rocks like that around there. We do have green rocks around here, but this was right, Russell, and it was definitely looked like something that was placed there. I had no idea about the green rocks, but he pointed that out.
It was definitely placed there, so it's something that they brought from somewhere else, most likely. Now, there's a good chance that you're close to the seashore. There's a good chance that that's where they found the stone is somewhere along the seashore. So.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, this is to speak to that. That was the time that I had put a loaf of French bread out. You buy you buy two, or, buy two, get one free, whatever. So I thought, I'm going to do this and I'm going to put it right out while it's fresh. Well, it sat there though for a few days, and I had it kind of up in the crook of the tree, so nothing could just get it. And then then it's gone. Maybe 2-3 days later, I noticed it's gone. Well, now I'm thinking, that I don't know. That could be any animal. That could be anything, right? I mean, it's just a loaf of French bread in a bag, twisted, stuck in a tree. Could be anything. I think, I don't remember exactly, maybe like 4 days, a week later, I went back. There is the bag that the bread was in, and it was folded over in half, and it was on the ground, empty, and that is the rock that was placed on top of it, that green rock. So now, who's going to do that? There's no humans in there that are going to do that. I know that for sure. So that was another interesting mystery.
Yeah, and that shows the power of deduction too. I mean, they were wise enough to realize that bag would not stay there; it would blow away if they didn't put a stone on it. So that's logical thinking. I mean, we're talking about a thought process here that's worked out to get the result that they want, and they want the bag to stay where it was so that you could see it. And by putting the rock on there, they knew that would do that. So
yep.
So I thought that was an interesting concept too.
Amazing.
Just in that part of it.
Interesting.
In this area, and I think that it's the same clan. My neighbor that lives about 5 miles away from me. And his name is Kevin Royce, and he's talked about it. He and I have been on shows together. He's talked about it. What the Sasquatch, he believes, will do something. They'll take the toters, the garbage toters. They'll take it from where they have them in front of in front of their garage, like on the driveway. They'll take the toter and set it in the wood line. So I don't know how far it is. It's maybe 175 feet, let's say, from his garage. So they drag it through the grass, and then it will, and he's assuming that it's a Sasquatch doing this. They open it up, take the bags out, go through the bags, close the bags up, and put them back in, because he will find that the toter's over there, and you open it up and you can see that it's been disturbed. But this isn't like something like a bear or raccoon. They're not going to neatly undo the garbage bags and neatly take stuff out and then close them back up, tie them back up. They're not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. So, and that happens quite frequently to him. So
it would
there
be
again,
interesting to know what they were looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, they were obviously looking for something in the bag, something they expected they would find.
Yes.
Would seem to be the mindset that I would suggest, based on that piece of information, that they were looking for something that they were expecting to find in those bags, and they either found whatever it was they were looking for, or they didn't find it, and so they put everything back together, and they wanted to make it so that it wasn't look like that they were looking for something.
Yeah. Which that again, shows deductive reasoning and a thought process.
Total intelligence.
Yeah. And also courteousness, they're being courteous, because they could just dump it over and
right. And at the same time, we can also, knowing what we do know with sightings that are occurring everywhere of all cryptids in ways, maybe it wasn't even a Sasquatch. Maybe it was a dogman. In fact, we don't know. But it's something cared enough to use proper etiquette somehow. A formalization of intelligence that sometimes we, even as humans, don't even use. But let me throw it aside, kick it, whatever. Somebody left the liver right out today, whatever. Yeah. But sometimes I think animals are smart. If we watch birds, if we watch bugs, they do teach us. I always do that. When I want to know when spring's really coming, you listen to start hearing the summer birds, the spring birds, the suns, those beautiful little things. But you also notice that bugs start to move around. And not just any kind of bug in ways, but you do see many of them, is those stink bugs. As soon as there's an outside heat coming, they start to, wherever they got in the woodwork at, come out, that you can't find them within, pretty crazy. Now, one of the questions it was written into, I do want to get to a couple of them. One of them was, and I know 2 cases that this happened to last year, only 2. I had a lot of things in the sky. What's in the sky went nuts. It really did. But not like what we were seeing, speculating on with all these drones and so forth. Actual good things. But again, another time, another topic. So, 2 places where the same type of thing happened. Footprints that disappear. Okay? And I want to be very specific to this, because people say they can jump 20 feet into a tree. Okay, but can they jump 1,000 feet to a tree line from the middle of a field? Is this the quantum effect? Is this the dimensional possibility? And is it more Bigfoot? Is it more of dogman? Or do they both have these types of capabilities? Because we're still asking, like Russell always, and I have said, and him more than me, will always have more questions than answers. But again, when you have things that disappear, and where do they go? Do they have the capability of jumping 1,000 feet? I don't think that they do. I don't know everything. Maybe they can fly. I just don't know. I mean, the possibilities are endless as we keep researching, talking, having great discussions, just like we're having now. What are your thoughts on this, Russell? Where are the prints going when they just disappear in the middle of a field prepared for growth, for a new crop? So it's all fresh turned, it's soft, and they're just gone.
Yeah, well, that's a tough question, because it's, there aren't a lot of options that really explain that too much. Now, Mary Green speaks about in her book that they actually backtrack in their tracks, and they had actually used a branch to brush out tracks. So they did things that they were trying to hide their tracks. And she was able to actually visually see them doing this. So I mean, but you know, for somebody that's a good tracker, I mean, I would think you would still be able to spot that if they did walk backwards in their track.
Yeah.
But to the layman, maybe not.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe they are able to get on all fours.
Yeah.
Move across the ground and therefore distribute their weight more equally between their different the four different, instead of walking on 2 feet, having on 4, and that might allow them to move around and not leave as much of a track as they would have been walking on 2 feet. I mean,
okay. Let me give you some
possibility as well. I mean,
yeah, I want to give you some details on that. So, if there is a foot separation in steps, 9.5 feet, 9.5 feet, and let's say that this particular cryptid was running, can he run backwards that good to where there's not going to be an imperfection in the in the impression?
No.
Listen, I walk on fresh turned, ready to crop soils. You can't even walk in it without damaging it somehow. Every speculation that we come up with, I agree that we have a theory to, but I find it hard to believe after what I saw on that occasion, of those pictures, of everything that was sent to me, knowing the ground conditions and everything. So I thought I'd bring that up, unless it's an alien intervention and or it's military somehow comes down in a helicopter and they sack and bag him with the net, and just boom, he's gone up, and they relocate him back to where maybe he should be. I don't know. I'm speculating. I don't disagree with anything anybody's saying here. It's just, I really do want to say, I find it hard to fathom that something can go backwards as fast as they went forward. You go outside and try it. If we are a lot alike, I want to see how well we can do, because then these creatures are beyond intelligent. They're genius and deception. They truly, truly are. And we're never going to catch them. Just forget it. Give up. Put all your tools away. We're never going to find them.
Walking forward and then walking back in their tracks is one thing. Running is not something they're going to be able to do satisfactorily to hide their tracks. So rushing out their tracks is a possibility too. I mean, they could, knowing that they are going to do that, they carry the branch with them. They walk out through the field, and when they get to the spot, then they disturb this after they walk. They brush out their tracks. I mean, but there again, that's something that's pretty easy for somebody to recognize that understands that kind of a thing. Now, unless they rained or something on top of it, I mean, that might disturb the pattern so that you couldn't tell that something was brushed out. But if they're running, they're not going to be able to backtrack at all. So it's a difficult question. There may be something else that we don't understand. I've done some work on their electromagnetic field around their body, their aura. That may be something that allows them to gives them something to walk on. I mean, I don't know. It's a stab in the dark for sure. But there may be something to it that we don't understand. Hey, that's a good book.
Listen, and for only $99.99,
I got it.
I'll have Russell even call you directly for 10 minutes, and you will get a signed autograph. I'm joking, everybody, but it's fascinating, and it's making star history on Amazon. It really is.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I have mine. It is a fantastic. I think I have it back by my bedroom, because I always I look in that book. It's such a great reference book. It really is excellent. If you guys don't have it, you definitely want to pick it up. It's Amazon, right? Is it $19.95? That's what I think I paid for it. Is that what it still is? I don't know. But fantastic. Gosh. fantastic book. I do refer to it quite a lot. It's an easy read. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I wrote about a lot of different things in
yes,
that book,
you did.
too. So
you didn't mention me.
A wide variety. What's that?
You didn't mention me. I'm joking. I'm joking. I am in books, believe me, I am. But that doesn't matter. I mean, it really is. There's a lot of pictures in here. There's a lot of detail. It's very easy to read. It's not complicated. You'll breeze through it, but I guarantee you'll want to go back to the beginning and start over. You really will. You will be binge reading. And, it's not a lot of things that people do anymore. People are giving up reading, and that they shouldn't because the significance of how history is going to move forward and all the subject matters that are being shared out there are going to be because of things like this. Because, Russell cares about what he believes in and so forth. Let's give a quick hello out there. Callan's been in. Jack's been all over the board. Cliff Evans has been in. And Holly was in. I'm trying to remember. Geez, forgive me, please, for 1 second here. I want to give a shout out because of the incredible picture. Harley Owens. That was his picture of the dogman. I wanted to say Odessa Roberts used to send me some real SHIT pictures. I mean, things that I were like, oh my God, how do you capture this stuff? And I mean, I just want to give her a shout out, due diligence to somebody that was a rock star that did incredible pictures. Bettina Moss. Then we have, Scott Pace, another incredible individual that has mind spoke with Bigfoot creatures, cryptid creatures, what I think he believes are the Bigfoot Sasquatch. A lot of great, fascinating people out there, and all the amazing groups and so forth too.
David, David says, "Don't forget me, bro." I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Oh my God, I know that person. I really do. Funny story. He's my brother. No, not a joke. He's my brother with the same mother.
That's cool.
He's under an alias. He's under an alias. He doesn't like using his real name. David Anthony doesn't sound right.
Cliff Evans said their footprints disappear in the snow, and then Jack Warren said some say they seem to float. And I had actually talked to somebody that said that that they felt that they were floating because of how they were moving across, and they could see their feet, and they did not seem to be touching the ground. I don't know. I've seen elephants will actually put big pieces of brush in their. You've seen that, in their trunks, and they'll use that and to wipe out their footprints as their big prints as they walk by to prevent predators from following them. And then I also saw recently there was a young man. I don't know. He was like I believe like a shepherd. And maybe in Indonesia, and he didn't have any use of his legs. They were like malformed, his legs. So he travels through on his front hands. And I mean, he can fly the way that he can run so fast on his front hands. And I'm thinking, is this something that they could do? Or do they do that spider crawl thing that we've heard many reports, people have seen them with the spider crawl? And the guy that I talked to, one of the guys, he said they were like up, it wasn't on hands, they were like up on their fingers. And so he couldn't really see how the feet were, but they were like, so, these strange footprints that people find, is that what that is indicative of possibly?
Maybe when we say that we're only seeing like 3 imprints, maybe it's the 3 primary fingers that they somehow have more of a capability to use than we do as Homo sapiens sapien, because we're looking at something totally different here, of course. But knowing and hearing what we think we know, some of the indications of evidence that have come out on DNA and hair and different things and what they relate to as ancestries of monkeys, if you want to just say it like that in the easiest terms, then I would say it. But normally you see them kind of curve over. They kind of curve them over into studies, watching gorillas, watching chimpanzees, earliest Tarzan movies all the way through, where nothing was trained to walk a certain way, although things were more graphic and more harsh on animals back then because of circuses and movies in Hollywood and what they wanted to, train and put, these poor things through.
Mm-hmm.
But so I guess they have different abilities of how they can work the components where, we're just not going to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, when you look at it being 600 pounds, 800 pounds, 1,000 pounds, being 6 foot, 8 foot, possibly nearly 10 foot. We do hear about this, but we also hear that they're much larger. Once again, in Alaska, reports saying that they do see them, testimonials up to 10 foot. We're not hearing those numbers locally anymore. There was a time when Dave Parker was doing things, and he said he had a place on his land that he saw some that were standing this tall. And how he learned to judge it, was by also taking the foot size, the print, into consideration. And somehow he mathematically did an equation to come out with the height and approximate age of. So I thought that was really a significant information too. I don't know if people or the newbies are using some of those technologies of just simplified common sense to actually analyze some of the subject matter that we do also.
Yeah, there is a ratio, right? There's a ratio that you can use.
But I don't know which one's right. I mean, I heard 5 or 6. Russell, please. Sorry about your interruption there, Russell. Go ahead.
Yeah, there is a mathematical figure that you can use to figure that out, or at least give you a ballpark figure on the height based on the size of the foot. But there again, on the disappearing tracks, I mean, you could look at something as simple as the Sasquatch was to lie down and roll its body over and over several times. It could go quite a distance and without leaving any tracks.
True.
They would just bend the grass over, and as they rolled along, the grass would stand back up. I mean, that would certainly be a possibility. I mean, anything could be possible, but if they knew someone was following their tracks or something, they had a reason for doing it, and something like that could be what they do. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Let me tell you guys something else that I realized that I have video evidence lately of them doing, because they do occasionally show up on my infrared security cameras, which is where I get a lot of my audio. They have this thing that they can like mask their eye shine, because of course, with an infrared camera, you're going to get eye shine. They put, I don't know. It's like big, almost like it looks like black goggles. And I know it's not that they're wearing goggles, but there's like a black, and now I'm like, oh, well, okay. Well, I know if I see that's what, and because you can see the eyes open up and close and open up, and it literally looks like they have big black goggles on. And I had mentioned that to a couple of my friends that are researchers that are in habituation situations, and they're like, oh yeah, we that's definitely them. We've seen them do that. Now, isn't that like amazing that they know to do that? They know when the camera comes on, they can see.
And they may be able to do that by simply having something like an extra eyelid. When you look at an owl's eye, they have 3 eyelids. So if you see you're being observed or something, and you want to hide your eye shine, they might be able to close one of those eyelids.
Good point.
It diffuses the color of the eye shine, but yet still allows them to see the same as an owl does. So that could be some kind of a possibility.
Yeah.
That it might be something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you see me, now you don't. It's kind of like photogray. Or if you look at some of the early theories, if what we have been shown in ways are true of the grays having that outer lens shell, there is like an eye camera, something behind there. Supposedly maybe we'll walk into the future and get to know some more of that into the future, however that works out. But I would agree with that, because the owl is significant, and it does give you a different theory to play a part in. Really great point to bring up, Russell. Really great point.
Yeah, thank you. I know that's cool. I never thought about that.
I mean, why not? Because again, it could be part of something that happened over an evolutionarily part of time to keep them somehow in a way to be able to roam within the nocturnal existence of things versus the light existence, that difference. Maybe they are cave dwellers. Maybe that's part of why there's things being implanted into the woods that send out different types of signals. Maybe, this is working a whole different narrative, and maybe the government's using Bigfoot as an excuse when really behind it, they're using negative weapon frequencies. And that's part of why all these people were gone missing. Not to say David Paulides is wrong, but he started blaming Bigfoot for it. That this could be a compromise, it could be Bigfoot. And I'm not saying he did it negatively. He was just trying to theorize what the hell was going on. Because the truth of the matter is, a lot of people do blame Bigfoot for missing people. But what if, in fact, they're just, utilizing the existence to keep us busy while they're manipulating the missing? As we're learning. I'm not trying to bring this into a political scenario, but it makes me wonder because of how Russell pointed out the owl and how things that they can even do to do it. Why is it impossible to think the theory a different way? Stop blaming Bigfoot. Stop blaming him, because what we do understand is he's an intelligence of, whether he's part human, part, we don't know, not totally. And I'm going to keep batting as hard as I can to figure it out with everybody else. One of the other things I wanted to tell you, I put up little tree knockers. You remember the little miniature bats? When we were kids, I thought they were the cutest thing. I had to have one. You couldn't do nothing with it. You pick up a paper ball but put a little chain on it and put a screw into a tree and see if they knock for you. You're going to understand a different knock, that something's reaching a point. It's thoughtfully would be a raccoon. Well, why? But it would be something would be height between 6 and 8 foot. And that's the attention span that because once they get over that, I'm running the other way. If they're over 8 foot,
but they make a tree knocking.
I'm
sorry, I didn't mean it. They make a noise with their mouth that sounds like they're hitting a tree. It sounds like two wood blocks are being, together.
You can do that with your tongue. Didn't you do that as a kid?
Yeah, but this is very, sounds exactly like it. And that's part of their, I think that's part of their, their language. Like you had said, Russell, they do clicks. They do like a high pitch, like a squeak. There's a lot of grunting in and then in and out. And I call it like a whisper talk, it sounds like. And that's part of that. I just feel like that's part of that is one of the things that people are hearing that what they would knock. And I think that they're not saying that all the time, but sometimes they're, mistaking that for,
I gotta get Lance Hightower on, because right now, this is where we need somebody in this deep discussion like this. Nikki Young, a friend of mine, rock star, American hero guy, loves everything though. He really does. He's passionate about what he speaks on. And he says even snakes have two eyelids.
Yes.
So there's much more to consider here. And maybe that's part of the missing element. Maybe you just hit on something that's really, really huge. And if that's true, then maybe Dogman has that same characteristic, through the evolutionary process from the beginning of wherever from till now, and why it has happened. And mainly, I would think it's because how the changes in the world is. Like one of the other factors I wanted to bring up tonight, because it was a question and I almost forgot about it, just came back into mind. I was looking for the paper a minute ago. With all the fires in California, how many more sightings have we had? If you want to know the truth, I've been watching it very closely. 3 or 4, that's it. So when you see hundreds of thousands of acres wiped out, as we did, reservoirs drained, water supplies gone, maybe they already left the area prior to it, is a possibility. But at the same time, I haven't seen no growth. The same thing when we were in 2023 in Canada, 240 wildfires, I think it was, that they recorded. We didn't see any other activity that was prevalent to saying, oh, my God, we're seeing these things. What they were saying, we see fox, we're seeing groundhogs, we're seeing squirrels, but they're not seeing the elusive ones.
Now, are there deep caves that they can go into, to hide? I think that's certainly a possibility.
Sure.
yeah, what could they do to protect themselves, in the event of a wildfire? Or is it a thing like you're saying? Is there somehow that they can go through a wormhole or a portal? I mean, who knows? Ron Moorhead talks about with quantum physics and quantum mechanics that it's a very real possibility. We're just watching. I've never seen a lot of the like the Marvel comic, movies and all that, and that's all through. I've started to watch the series with my kids because my daughter and her husband, because they know all about it, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And that's through all of that. Now, is this something that, did they just make this up? I can't believe it. It's just completely made up. I mean, we know that has happened in the past, that they've been able to pull things out of portals or things come out of portals. Was it the Montauk Project where they, in the Philadelphia experiment, there's all kinds of like things like that the government has done in the past.
Oh my God. Everything about what we think we know has been an experiment. Yeah. And I think it has an effect on everything, because if we change, the outside world changes, the country changes, the landscape changes. When we try to develop more, we take from them. So our movements change their movements. How far can we drive them back on the planet? You know what I mean? Something else that came up on that one of the final questions. I had several, but I misplaced them. But I do remember, how fast can Bigfoot run? And I do have one thing that I had written down that I made a note of that came to mind. But I want to hear your thoughts, if you would just like to make a simple evaluation or, theory on it. Russell, let's start with you. How fast do you think a Bigfoot is capable of running?
Well, first thing is, it depends on his size, because the taller he is, the bigger his step is, and the more ground he's going to cover with his ability to run. So, but certainly it's got to be very fast. I mean, they certainly have the ability to run down a white-tailed deer or probably an elk or something of that nature. I mean, and so the speeds of those animals might be something that we could look at to give us a ballpark idea. But I think you're probably talking there again at 50 miles an hour, possibly as much as that. May not be quite that much, but it depends too. Are we talking about running across an open field or running through the woods with bushes and briars and logs and sticks and all kinds of stuff in the way? It may be considerably slower. So, but that would be, I would feel pretty good with an estimate of that based on what a deer is running and the capabilities of them to be able to run down a deer. So.
Good answer. Good answer. A lot of good information in there too that you added. Barb?
I have no idea. No idea. I know that I've seen, we've seen videos, but who knows of them moving very quick, and just the only thing that I can say, because I've no experience and I've not witnessed personally anything like that. My husband, and we don't know what this was. He saw something we have a compost pile. And one night it was dusk a few years ago. This was before we realized that there were Sasquatch here. He went to the compost pile to put something on it, and he said there was something black. He thought it was possibly like the size of maybe like a cougar or a big black, if you imagine like a big black German Shepherd, but he couldn't tell he couldn't really tell, and I said, well, did it look like, I didn't even ask if it was humanoid. He just was thinking it was a big animal. And when it, like it was, they're eating something and then it took off, and he said, I've never seen anything move that fast. Now, what was that? Was that a juvenile? Maybe was it? He said it ran on kind of like, on all fours. It wasn't something that stood up and bipedally ran away. I don't know. I know we do have cougars here. But I don't think we have any black, panthers. And I don't know. Yeah, we just don't know. But the way that he said, coming from somebody, that was grew up on a farm, farmed in many, local areas in Pennsylvania, and also, as a hunter, has hunted just about any game that you could find. Not big game, but but he did hunt bear. Nothing like he'd ever seen anything move that fast. So that's the only thing that I can speak to on that. Who knows if that was even a Sasquatch? Yeah, I don't know. We don't know.
Well, 50 sounds like what everybody's, including a couple comments here, or at least one that I did see in case any other passed me by there. So 50 does seem to be a feasible number of belief of what people have experienced, and including why the question was asked. Now, the other one is how are they able to move? It was like a two-part question, and I don't think any of us can answer this. From running through a field versus being in a wood line in the thicket, how are they able to, again, move so elusively with high speeds? Like now you see a shadow peek out from behind the tree. It's caught on camera. You don't get it. You saw something. Camera even visualizes a little bit of something peeked out from behind. You may see the one eye, just enough, something, and then it's gone. And you can walk for hours and never find it. We've watched shows and documentaries and many other things happen like that, where it's just after their sighting, they go silent. Did they go up? Well, if they did, I think you would hear them per se and more. When the monkeys escaped from that, whatever, or chimpanzees, whatever they were, there was like 35 or 40. They were jumping from tree to tree. They were very evident where they were. And the guys with the tranquilizer guns all surrounded them. We're able to, put them back into what do they call captivity, under lock and key. But not this guy, not this lady. It doesn't work that way. And maybe that's why Patty, when she turned and looked, that beautiful furry girl, and just like, I know, now you see me, now you don't. And her theory was, I'm just going to stay on my path and just get out of here. And that's what happened with that, because, we only know what the Patty film shows, a brief period of time, even with a sudden look, but I'm going about my business. And maybe once it hit the tree line, and I'm just speculating here because I don't know what happened beyond a certain point. I don't think none of us do, beyond the testimony, it vanished. It vanished, so you get that, you get that moment if it's meant to happen, if it's meant to be.
Bob Gimlin gave his first interview to Autumn Williams back in, was it the 80s, 80? I can't remember the exact year, but on television, he was the first one that allowed, her to, or she was the first one that he allowed to interview. And he said that he thought that Patty didn't look over her shoulder until his horse was coming through the creek. Like she wasn't really concerned about them until she saw that the horse had his horse crashed through the creek because he was trying to get around so he could protect, Bob. My gosh.
Roger.
Yes, Roger. I'm like, yeah, Roger. Yes, exactly. Because he's like, cover me, and that was when Patty looked over her shoulder. He said she was very aloof other than that. And I have to say, the ones I have seen some sitting, I literally can look into an area now where they're sitting, and that's exactly how they are. Now, they're not very close to me. They're about maybe 60 yards away, but they will literally just sit there looking around, not looking right at me. Just, she's not going to do anything. We're cool. It's wild, but I don't know. We don't know, right?
And it's funny that the horse didn't try to run completely off, because with a brain the size of a walnut, they're still very intelligent. No matter what anybody says, if they know about horses, they are but they're also very attentive to their environment. They don't like something, they get a bad vibe, they're worse than a human. They're gone before we can say, hey, take me with you, and they're gone down the road. That never happened or occurred.
Well, it was Bob Gimlin. I think his skill as a rancher, as a expert horse person, in the rodeo, I think it was literally because of his skill to keep that was able to calm the horses down and keep them in a little bit in check, because the one through Roger Patterson, threw him off. when they came around the bend and saw Patty, they freaked immediately, like you're saying, immediately freaked out and threw him off. So they know what's
going on. And I think if they had tried to chase Patty on horseback, and force the horse to kind of chase her,
stand
you would
right
have
up.
seen her pick up the pace, and she would have run.
Yeah,
yes.
she stood up.
Got to the wood line a lot faster than just the walk she was doing. But I think when she looked back, she thought that may be the possibility that the horse was coming across the creek,
right,
and was going to chase her,
yeah,
and she was going to have to start running.
Yeah.
But when she saw that wasn't the case, she just kept up her pace and just concentrated until she got into the woods. And then she went up the slope considerably, and there was a spot up there where they found some tracks where she stopped and looked back to see if they were following her. So she was concerned about that.
Yeah, because they tracked her for a while, and I didn't realize it, but that's what he had said. Yeah, that they tracked her for quite a while, and then they lost. So, yeah, and I mean, obviously,
they found a spot where she stopped. And there were a number of tracks where she stood around there and looked back to see if they were following her. And initially, they weren't, but like you said, they did follow it, and then they found this spot where Patty had stood and looked back over her trail.
Yeah. There's all that, and a bag of shell nuts too. I mean, just it's just so wide. I mean, you would think in the 50 years that have gone by that we would have been able to isolate a little bit better of information. That's why I think when I say, look, I understand people's privacies of lands and so forth, but there are certain areas that people go into also where we could work together in a much larger scale, almost as if you're doing a search party for a child. We do them when we have to, and we all go 6 feet apart, amazingly, and we all take steps forward, creating a very long line so none of us miss any of the information. And I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but people will go like the land between the lakes and just different areas where we could all somehow do something to maybe actually, maybe we don't want to get it to that point either. Maybe that's when they would feel threatened, and it would be the worst decision.
We wouldn't see them. Absolutely not. They would hear, I think they would hear a bunch of humans coming. And I think that's really the thing anyway, is what the problem is that, if you have a large group of people, you go out and, sometimes you get evidence, but not a lot. And I think that's why they're going to be.
Right. And that's why the government's ahead of us on all this, because they can go in and do a whole circular area. And they can create the environment to entrap them using whatever sophistications they have and following them into a corner, like maybe. And I think that they do, and they have done things like this. Why and what the science behind that was, who's to say? Below level 7, just for a quick minute. We got tunnel systems that go glass coated, they're made nuclear boring, heat 2000, the temperature's like 2000, comes out and it hits, and then it has these pressurized pistons that can go up into tonnage. And with all that tonnage going through and that big needle coming out, that nuclear needle that creates that heat, it actually makes the circumference look like a sheet of glass. No dirt left behind, no cleanup. Very minimal amount of anything. The machines cost mega dollars. We have, I think, 6 owned within the United States, but they don't talk about how many we own and what they're all used for. But we do have these, but then you have the ancient tunnels, you have the mines, and who's to say how long they've been doing what? But then you can go into the other category of the reptoids, the reptilians, the draconian. They're all down there. I do believe the government's working in systems with. When we look at the technologies, the advancements, and how far we come into the spectrum of where we are now, I do fear AI. I know it's a better component, but only if it's in the right person's hand. And I do think that Vice President Vance is going to be the man that's going to take us into it. It's not going to be the president, but it's going to be him. And I can only hope that we learn from things that actually that make benefit to have more transparency for the things that we have interest in. But then again, would we be disappointed just to be told tomorrow if someone was to come on the microphone and say there are aliens and Bigfoots are real and dogmen exist? You can all go home now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're headed to something like and with. They're there with and like. I guarantee you. But it doesn't mean that I'm right and accurate on it. But how would people then? Would the groups just fall apart? All right, we know they're real. Let's get on to the next mythological creature. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I have already seen one. I saw one. I think it was a female. It was sitting 6 feet from me. So I know that they exist, but I'm not like, okay, I'm done. I know that they exist. I feel like there's still going to be an interest and there's still going to be people that are going to want to.
Yeah. What's that spark that we keep you going? Because you saw it. It was there.
Because yeah, I mean, I'm completely like obsessed in a way and entranced. I don't know what keeps me going, but you're right. Yeah. I mean, because I can say with certainty, she's sitting there, she moved. It was the weirdest thing. I have said before, I was really disappointed in how I acted, but she put her head down and I screamed and ran into my house. I don't know. I think it's really interesting. I want to learn more about them. But I also want to have like a mutual, like a respect. I don't want them coming up into they've never come up onto the deck that I've seen anyway. And they've, try to get in the house. I know that some people have had them do that. I don't want them to do that. So I'm always like, I'll respect your boundaries. You respect mine. Now that I know that there's little ones out there, because I've seen them, there's some areas that I'll look in on them, but I won't go to those areas because I've been hit. I was hit with infrasound once. And I feel like because I don't know, too close to the little ones. I don't want that to happen again. And I just want to be respectful of them, but that's a whole other, that's just my thing. That's my truth,
Yeah. Hey, Russell, I got a question for you. And I asked what respect is. I really try to do all the time with this because I'm a believer. I mean, too many weird things, especially, I don't know if I've ever mentioned. Let me say this before I get into that part. So I had a young lady call me. Oh, God, I don't know. It's in one of my tablets behind her. I write it down a long time ago. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it was about her being in a car and looked in the rearview mirror and thought she saw something there. And she was unsure, so she put her foot on the brake to put the car into drive. And when she put the foot on the brake, there was a change in the environment. When she let off the brake, it was no longer there. When she put on the brake, it reappeared.
Ooh.
The red light effect. I mean, I didn't know what else to call it. We know we're using things. Brake lights there.
Right.
Take off the brake, not there. But the suspicion of it, the instinctiveness, being watched, all the things that made her jump into the car saying something's not right here. I got to get out of here. You look in the rearview mirror, you do whatever you do. Once the car's running, you put it in drive, and then it's like it's there, it's not. You start to drift forward, it's gone. Then you put on the brake again, it's back again. That's pretty weird. But what constitutes a good picture? Well, how do we define what is acceptable as a good picture? Because there's always conflict. That's the biggest conflict in all the groups, and we need to maybe right now we can make change to that. Just reviewing this, what constitutes a picture?
There are good pictures out there. I have seen some that people don't want to be publicized, but they showed them to me. So I have seen some good pictures, certainly equal to what we see with the Patterson film. On at least 3 different occasions, I've seen pictures that were at least as good as the Patterson. A still shot, not a movie, just still shot. But with AI in the mix nowadays, it's going to be much more difficult to have any kind of a picture that you're going to be able to represent, a good value of a Sasquatch, because with the AI they can manipulate so much stuff. It's just going to make it really difficult. So I personally don't think we need a picture. That we got what we see with the Patterson Gimlin film is adequate. I mean, we're looking at other things to try to support how these creatures live and what they eat, and all the things that they do is what we're interested in. And to have a photograph, I think is moved down on the scale of importance in the scheme of things. So,
okay, Barbara.
I wanted to ask, have you guys seen Thinker Thunker had done, and I know there's he's somewhat controversial, but I think he puts out some really good stuff at times. He had done the body ratio recreation of the Independence Day Bigfoot, which Russell and I, we've talked about that. We feel, I felt that was real, but I don't know, but this kind of proves it, we don't know if it's a Sasquatch, is it a Bigfoot, but we know that it's not a human. That's super interesting, because that's clear as can be.
Yeah, that piece of film is pretty unique, because it shows the Sasquatch holding a juvenile, a very small, young juvenile, and the juvenile actually puts its hand out and pushes away from the mother's body as the juvenile is looking at the camera person. So, I mean, that's I don't know how you fake anything like that.
Well, you could put a child in a costume, and if it wants to react to the way it's being treated, it's going to push back the same way. Listen, I did a lot of movies. I truly have. Okay? I'm not always on the main screen. Behind picture cards, productions, picture set, all these different scenarios, explosions, just different variations of. And I don't say what I say ever to be rude, but I knew Tom Savini. Do you guys know who Tom Savini is? Because he's from Pittsburgh. He's a local guy. He lived right in the same neighborhood as me. We had conversations. He used to come to a nightclub bar that I owned and would have drinks at night. He was the most precious, brilliant man in the world that created the first suit. And it's still the best one out there. So these things I'm just saying, was doing for Dawn of the Dead and, all these things that were once upon a time, the gore, what he could do, he was the legend. He still is the rock star of it, his work. And he created the Dogman. He believe it or not, before we were ever talking about it, the werewolf, the Dogman, came to life. Not to say that we weren't talking about the werewolf, but it wasn't till that costume came out and was presented in Halloween horror type come pay, walk through, things that these Halloween events that go on for 30 days at Halloween time and so forth.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just for movie props. It was also for the realism. And this guy was a rock star. And he would put, the reason I reflected this, because I was standing there, I watched this shit. He put people in him to see how they would react, so how the suit would move. And then he would go back. And I mean, he was like a seamstress on steroids that would go until it was right, till the anatomy moved in every synchronized motion as what he did. And then have somebody else reenact it back the best they could to see that everything was moving and functioning the way it should. So I'm not trying to be rude by what I said, but what I am sharing with people is I've done a lot of work in Pittsburgh that way. Sudden Death, Innocent Blood, all those. I was there. I was on set, Hoffa. I didn't always have the same process. There were some I was involved for 6 months from start to finish on every damn aspect that there was in a movie. led the path. I truly did. I was there before California went back. I was there after California went back, because they would come here under Moshe DeLaunt, who would write my contracts under Universal Pictures. A lot of people really don't know this about me, but I can tell you what I've seen behind in the dressing rooms and what happens in the creation rooms. I mean, we were faking license plates. We were faking inspection stickers. We were making cars 30 years old look like they were up to date on the street, so nothing looked out of place. Everything had to be proper. I was the analyst. I was the one that went up to them and said, it's not going to work. People are going to see this. They're going to know the movie's a lie. Do you want authenticity or do you want bullshit? Yeah. And I'm telling you, he was the genius of Dogman. I'm telling you, that's where it came.
What was his inspiration, though? Like, where did he get that inspiration?
He loved gore. He was a master at art of creation of what technology is teaching us to do now and what you're seeing presidents putting over their faces.
But did he think this, like, you know what I mean? Where was his idea? I don't know
where it came from, Barb. I mean, I never asked that deep question.
Yeah, because if that's the first one, where did he get? He had to have. I mean, or was it something that he just a visionary,
of gore?
There are, historical cases of dog men, just. So I don't know. That's really cool.
Yeah, I don't know if it came from the werewolf or maybe perhaps one of these things that you just mentioned. Could very possibly be. And at the time, it was just like for me to be in front of the creator. I mean,
oh my gosh, so
he was. I mean, maybe there was a handful of guys across the world, but he was the creme of the creme. I mean, truthfully, he was called in for everything. He was the one that gave all the advice. And technical advice on how to do and whatnot. Wow. I don't think he liked his work was so much better. He made the actors look bad. I mean, when you look at Dawn of the Dead, World War,
yeah,
I know firsthand. I know, and I'm telling you, but I don't have that answer. I wish I could answer that. And he's getting rather old. I think he's still with us. I hope he is. God bless him. He was a great guy. Always the type of person to talk to anybody. But he was the genius behind a lot that gave all this to the public. And why you go to these costume shops and find it, it's because they bought his marketing. They bought his recreations to put on. Mm-hmm. And when you go now and you see better, it's because they're just starting to catch up to what he is, because they are actually, buying the copyrights to what,
Yeah.
I would love to get my hands on an original mask. I'll tell you, it looks so like some of these things, like Russell said, AI, there are geniuses out there that can outdo AI when it comes to certain things. But I think the combination of them two, that taught AI how to compromise the realistic focal points of the subject.
Mm-hmm. I think, though, some of them, okay, so I go back to what's the motive? Like, okay, with the Independence Day one, let's just use that as an example. Mm. That is something that I was like, I don't know. And I remember Russell was like, no, that I really believe is real. It's authentic. Because then these costumes are not going to be cheap, except, something like that, something like what you're talking about. The gentleman that you worked with, he's not going to just do this out of the kindness of his heart so that somebody can make a hoax film where we don't even know who shot that. It's not like this person was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to become famous by getting this, the money shot of the Independence Day. So you're putting a lot of money into something and then you're going to be anonymous. Like, I don't, that doesn't really make sense. What do you guys think?
We did have an anonymous that was giving us a lot of really creative content of information through ufology and so forth and whatnot. So, I mean, it's someone that's.
But I'm saying, like, to go to the trouble, to hire actors or hire people to go into a costume that's going to be to put on costumes. It's going to be super expensive. And then you're going to have to teach them how to walk in, and how to, especially if it's something that the body ratios are completely different than a human. That's going to take some, some skill.
The anatomy. That's where he was skilled. He could make the anatomy fit you to make you look like a man underneath the suit.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he would take the suit apart. He didn't touch the outside. All the adjustments through spray foams and insulations were all created by that. He would make a mold of your chest to make you look like me as a man underneath, even if I couldn't be there in that spot that day.
Yeah. Wow.
That's why that's called the stand-in.
Mm-hmm. But again, that's got to be expensive, right? This stuff.
No, it's the prices come down immensely. There was a point in time, the dollar value, but now everything's becoming obsolete and available.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I really can't say, but I was just trying to share it for a different purpose of reason that you can't take something, a fragment, as what he showed on screen through the screenshots and to the directors and producers that were on set. All he needed was 5 to 7 seconds, and he could make a film out of it.
Wow.
He could make them stand up, and then he could articulate, and CGI took over. CGI is 40 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
AI is 30 years old. We were already at the beginning of AI and in that scenario. Now, I can only tell you that from a movie perspective. I can't tell you that real life, not what we're, but it still makes me wonder, although I still truly believe, because just things that I've dealt with, I've looked up into the skies. I've looked down on the ground. I've heard things. I heard the whistle, the bird in the middle of the night and then suddenly crashing a tree. Birds don't crash trees like that, unless they're lucky enough to have some type of fair warning that they know something that's about to fall and the whistle comes. Their little singing notes start to, the pitch comes out. I have no clue, but I can only tell you, being around and surrounded, there's good and bad everywhere. But one thing I will say is I never saw any of the Hollywood bullshit on the sets. A lot of people, I'm speaking of what a lot of people are paying attention to now. There were some really fascinating people. There really were. And they were more about becoming more politically empowered to certain organizations of Universal and different labels of, who the money makers of the movies were. They were all about positioning. I got the best job. I'm in control of this whole set, that kind of thing. Than there was any of the other dark secrets. I never seen stuff like that, although everybody was flirty, just of a normal way. Never nothing bad there. But again, just to share with you some of the things that I saw, I know that we can't create things that are sad, because we come to the point now where we're replacing man on everything when it comes to that. Not just jobs and automated farming that's going to come. It's going to provide better for us, but it's going to take a lot from us. So there's going to be good and bads. And that's why I asked on the picture thing, how do we weigh that? How do we move forward through it? What do we call something that is... Because I don't know anymore. I'm telling you the truth. I can look at something and say, my God, I want this to be real. And that's all I can do.
Yeah. It's going to just get harder and harder.
Yeah.
Right, more difficult.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, there are some pictures out there, but they're not very, they're rare, obviously. And the people that have them don't want to have it brought forward.
Yeah.
To cause them to be in the limelight. So.
Yeah. I have a lot that are like 30, 40 years old. I think I shared a couple to you in the past, Barb. I say things, and they were right. One was right in front of me, and I call it the Alabama white thing, because it was very not the way people describe in any context at all. So there are things out there, and you're probably right, Russell. So if we were to separate all this now stuff and go back to the old, maybe that will be the more significant of ways of proving the existence versus what we're seeing now of proof of the existence. Not to say all these pictures aren't true. I do believe I've caught many really strange things on cameras. I really have. And I can't say what they are. Sometimes it's an orb with a face in it. And it's like, is that what I really saw? But it does happen. Yeah. And how much can be faked, how much. So, I guess you have to do it to know it, to understand it, to believe it.
I'm not familiar with I was not familiar with dogmen at all. And we have a farm in Pennsylvania, and my husband and I were kind of walking around on it back in October, and because there's game cameras, on it, and security cameras, and he said we need to change the batteries. So I was like, I'm just going to do my thing and see if I can find any signs of Sasquatch, because that's really my area of interest. And you can tell a lot of times when they're in the areas if there's some weird tree structures, and that's really a hot spot anyway, northeastern Pennsylvania mountains. But there was something that I thought, like, that looks like something suspicious. I just got this weird feeling, and I took a video of it and a picture. I stopped the camera and took a picture. And then long story short, I'm quite sure now that it was a dogman, and only because, like, when I played the video, when I showed people, they're like, oh, that's a dogman. And then I showed it to some of the guys, from the North American Dogman Project. They have a whole team of, I wish we had in our community something like that. They have a biologist and
is that Nick?
It's Jody Cook's organization.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, man, they have but they also have psychics. They have, indigenous, people, like, I mean, everything you can think of, they've got it covered. And they put it to the group and had a consensus. Yeah, they got a consensus that was a dogman. And I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if I want to go walking on our farm again. But there hasn't been any problems, and it's also, no one's living on it right now, so perfect spot for them. Completely perfect spot. Northeastern Pennsylvania, is overrun by deer. So yeah, food source. So yeah,
well, the Fish and Game was putting in coyotes on purpose to reduce the populations of many wildlife animals. The hunters for a while just stopped hunting. But I think it was because of the past 4 or 5 years, what we, and I think people are going to get back out there. But they also, if you are part of the hunting groups out there, on your own or whatever, be very careful, because the Fish and Game Commission thinks they have more power now than the state police and the law. Be very careful. They are charging people with so much. It's what I'm watching when I do have time to look at it and what people are posting. It's almost like entrapment of a way of life. But again, I think as long as we have something of a better process, that could get corrected, because when you're working for the people, you work for them. You don't work against them every move they make to have some type of quality of life. I don't know how you guys want to end with this word. An hour and 52. That went really fast. Russell,
yeah, it did.
Close us out with something really brilliant, brother.
Oh, goodness. Put me on the spot.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to get you to say.
Oh, that's my book. Yep.
Yeah.
Where can everybody order this fabulous book?
It's on, you can go to Amazon Books and punch in Sasquatch and my name, and it'll bring it right up, and you can purchase it there. You can go to eBay. I have a site on there, and I'm selling some that are autographed on eBay. The ones on Amazon are not autographed. So you can go to eBay and get one of those.
Okay. All right. And on the back cover, it says "Searching for Sasquatch" with historical observations and impressions. Impressionist. Is it what's that word?
Observation. Yep.
Okay. I didn't get it done yet, Barb. It's coming.
Oh, hey, mine's coming.
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
I'm in March, middle of March, because I have one in my left eye really bad. That's gotten really bad. And then I have the other one.
How long has it been since we talked?
I know it's been, I didn't even realize that mine was that bad. Yeah. But anyway, it's Russell Easterbrooks. That's the man right there in the far upper right corner. We're pleasure always having you, brother. You know it is. And I don't know what the cost is, but if anybody needs to know it, I'll get it up for them. Also, if you need to contact
Russell for any reason, sightings, or information that's really important, you can get him at jetmaster2@gmail. So keep that in mind too, because he's always taking information for his next new book, his next new thing to share with us. And anybody having information or thinks that they can send him something, don't just bother him. He's busy, but send him a note and he'll reply back. So send him an email, and I'll put the book up for you tomorrow morning, Russell, to get you some more vibes out there. How many have you sold? A million yet? You at a million?
No, I'm afraid I'm not at a million, but
that's all right. We're going to try to get you there. Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
Barb, what about you? What about you? What do you?
Well, most of my I don't put anything very rarely on my personal page on Facebook, but if you join my Facebook page, No Drama, Bigfoot and Cryptids, that's where I put most of the information. And then most of I'd say like the best evidence as far as photographic and audio, because I have a lot of audio. I put that on my YouTube, which you can also be able to find me. It's Barb Hartman, No Drama, Bigfoot. So I'm doing that. I was doing 3 weekly shows on YouTube, and it just got to be too much. My research was like completely suffering. So I stepped back from that. I am doing a show with Kenny Thibodeau, who's part of the North American Dogman Project. I'm a co-host on that channel. And also we have a fun little thing coming up where we're going to go over true stories. It's called, this is Kenny. He's so creative. Camp Nightmare Fuel. So like true stories of scary things that are real. So we're doing that. And then eventually I want to start my show back up, but I've just been enjoying concentrating on my research, because I stay up several nights a week to get this research live. And what I do, I'll just do this briefly, because it seems like there's a lot of people that don't know me. I literally watch live through my home security cameras, and that's where I get a lot of my audio, most of my audio, and some of the photograph evidence, but mostly that is just going into the active areas. But yeah, so that's it. That's me.
Cool.
So please.
Cool. Well,
yeah, and thank you for having me. I love Russell. I love Michael. I love you guys so much. You're like my mentors. Oh, best friend. Like,
I appreciate your kindness. Your words are sweet. But I agree. How many knows any of us really, when you think about that? And when I do get some of the really higher numbers, radio related, into the hundreds of thousands, who is this guy? Nobody even knows who he is. Who is that? So it doesn't matter to me. I can still go places and not be bothered. Thank God. Because that's not the whole purpose behind, that's why I do so many different conversations. I want to be the show that talks about everything, but shows it all respect too, and tries to give whatever I can, the best I can. Where I stood in all this of everything is where I want to be, not how far I can gain to get to somewhere some of these other elites are at. I don't need that prestige. I don't want it, but I enjoy just, being able to talk to normal people. We all struggle. I struggle when I can't reach enough, because I know how important it is to protect certain things and certain elements of life. And it's a struggle every day to wake up and see that you weren't as successful as you wanted to be, because you knew you had something that was worthwhile saying to everybody, but no one really got to hear it. Well, you know what? Maybe in 100 years, there'll be educational programs out there, and people are going to listen to us in the future saying, oh my God, these people really knew what the hell was going on, but look what they went through, and so forth on all these different things. Did Russell leave?
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know.
He went too late. I don't know. Maybe he went too late.
Russell, if you didn't, I'm going to sign him out. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Russell, thank you so much for being on. I do appreciate it. And you get yourself some rest. We're all going to get rest. Thank you, everybody. Praises to everybody out there.
Russell, contact me. I want you to send me messages. Anytime you see something on my videos that you want to talk to me about, please let me know. I love your feedback. It's just a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. Definitely, please.
Yeah, I hope you guys all had a great night. This was the
Thank you.
Dark Radio Network project. It comes out every once in a while, where we got to play catch up and bring on some great guests for everybody. Just a quick hello to the ones I didn't get to say it for everybody. Brenda from Out of the Box.
Oh,
hey, yeah, Brenda. Brenda's on there. I love talking to her.
Yeah, she's great.
She's a hoot, man. She's a hoot. She's a hoot in a chair. You know. I mean, the things she'll say to me sometimes, it's like, my God, you know, she's unreal, but she's so fun. Cliff and Joe and Nikki Young and everybody that was in tonight, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Have a great evening, everybody. We'll talk again soon. I'll be on tomorrow night with something new for you. I promise it, from the Trump Network. We'll talk then. Bye.
Good night, everybody.